Hello, everyone. I'm Robyn Grable, the founder of Talents Ascend and the Ascend Collective, and your host for Ascending Beyond Barriers. Welcome. Ascending Beyond Barriers is an inspiring podcast dedicated to showcasing the remarkable journeys of small business founders who have faced and overcome significant challenges on their path to success. Each episode delves into the personal stories of entrepreneurs from diverse backgrounds, highlighting their unique experiences, struggles, and triumphs. Meet Blake Blakeborough, a serial entrepreneur and military Mustang who's redefining what it means to innovate. From jumping out of planes as an infantry officer to launching groundbreaking ventures like Knights of Siena and the USA's Olympic fencing school model and Tax Titans, a revolutionary platform connecting small businesses with vetted tax professionals, Blake thrives on disrupting the norm. With a history of creating solutions from gaming cafes to housing for homeless veterans and even starring on Amazon's The Blocks, his mission is clear: to empower communities and inspire change. Get ready to meet one of the crazy ones who's changing the game. Blake, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. I can't wait to get into this. We've known each other for a while. We met, I believe, through Bunker Labs. It's been a while. Yeah. So, but just you have so much that I want the listeners to hear about. But let's really start with, okay, you even admit you're one of the crazy ones. Tell people why that is.
So most people are told to act a certain way or to follow things and, work inside the box. I joke around that, a box is like a coffin. It's where dreams go to die. So from that aspect, I'm always looking for a better, more efficient, more effective way to do things, which, people go, well, you're crazy. You're expending more time and energy that's needed. Why don't you just do it the way it was done yesterday and the same way it's done today? So,
yeah. Absolutely. And in the military, you jumped out of airplanes, perfectly good airplanes, right?
Yep.
So
people
it all started there.
Yeah. People are like, why would you jump out of a perfect good airplane? It's kind of crazy. I'm like, well, when you got Sergeant Airborne behind you telling you to leave the airplane, you don't usually argue with them. So you just find the fastest exit and get the hell out of there.
Exactly. So our podcast is all about ascending beyond barriers. So I want to talk about a few of the things that you've gone through before we get to Tax Titans, because that's your legacy that you're building now. So tell us about the USA's Olympic fencing school that you created.
So I was a kid that was one that had 2 left feet, overweight, was always picked last in sports. I got exposed to fencing when I was in high school by a local college.
Nice.
Enjoyed the sport of fencing because it was individual. If I did really well, I got all the glory. If I did really bad, the only person I had to blame was myself. So from that aspect, it was a very empowering thing as a teenager. And then as I started learning and competing more, realized that in the United States, we really weren't a powerhouse worldwide for fencing like we are with baseball or football or, in basketball. And then a job that I had with a company called Alcatel allowed me to go back and forth to France. And I saw, France, which was, one of the powerhouses in the world in fencing. They basically were telling their students to do things the same way I would coach my students as to fixing problems. And then when I would talk with the instructors, I was like, okay, well, how come my corrective action is the same as your corrective actions, but every 4 years we meet at the Olympics and we get our butt kicked and you win? And they would say, well, in the United States, you guys are associated with clubs and YMCAs and you practice once a week. Over here, we have facilities where I have students 5 days a week. And fencing is like any other activity. The person who makes the least mistakes wins. And he's like, I get to correct 5 mistakes a week. You get to correct 1 mistake a week. He goes, within 1 week, that really doesn't matter. But over a 4-year period, that adds up.
Yes.
So I, came back to the States and I was like, one of the reasons that we lose is we just don't have facilities.
Wow.
And, martial arts, there's a Taekwondo studio in just about every strip mall in the United States. I was like, I'm not reinventing the wheel. I'm just taking their business model, and instead of kicking and punching somebody, we're stabbing and slashing them. So took the same idea, same method, same business plan, same revenue model, and just started creating fencing schools. And once I proved that it could be done and you could make a living with it, then everybody else was like, well, shit, I'll do it in my area. And and thus we went from in the mid 90s having about 4 or 5 facilities in the United States, that now there's over 3 or 4,000 of them. So
Wow. Wow. So a great idea that you had, that you took advantage of, something we weren't doing here in the US. And I can see the difference, because anything you want to do well, you have to do it more often. You've got to practice it. You've got to do
right.
it as much
Yep.
as you can to learn, right? So you had a loss associated with that venture. Tell us about that.
So I wrote, based on the competing a lot and training all the time, because I had a facility, I made the Olympic squad in 1994. And when I was at the Olympic Festival in St. Louis, I was with 14 other of the top fencers in the United States. A couple of them had been on previous Olympic teams. And we were all joking around about Atlanta in 1996 and how, once again, we were going to go and we were going to compete and we were going to get our butt kicked by our European counterparts. And during this breakfast, everybody was joking around, well, the way that we need to change that in the United States, we need more funding, we need more exposure. So we need to get fencing on television, and we need to make it a sport like golf or tennis or football or baseball. And everybody was joking around, well, in order to do that, someone needs to lead the effort. And they would have to be an elite level fencer and have a business background. And I realized that everybody had stopped eating at breakfast and looked up and realized everybody was looking at me. And they're like, hey, you work for Alcatel. You're one of the elite fencers. You're here at the Olympic Festival. You're on the squad. And then my buddy, Don Anthony, who's been the past president of the USFA, said, no, that's even too big of a job for Blake to handle. And that was the gauntlet being thrown on the table. And I was like, okay. And then spent the next 4 years building and putting the professional fencing league together. It was a great experience. We signed up 200 athletes worldwide. We got a contract with ABC Television, signed a contract with the city of Saratoga Springs, and we got ready to launch. And the day before we were launching, the United States Fencing Association banned any U.S. athlete that was competing in the league from qualifying for the U.S. Olympic team.
Oh, no.
So that was a long journey of legal bills and, going to court. We eventually won and we got the right to be on the Olympic team. But back in 1998, Facebook and social media didn't exist. So it wasn't like we could let everybody know that we won.
Yeah.
So I joke around that we proved it could be done. We had 4 great shows on ABC. We proved that it could be done. But that's after that all folded. I joke around with founders, burn rate is real. If you don't have the funds to make your operation go, you're only going to be able to exist for so long. And unfortunately, when you buy airtime on television, they don't take IOUs. So
wow. And it's expensive. It's
yes.
not. Yeah.
Every time we ran a show between post-production and filming, it was costing us $75,000.
Oh my gosh. Wow. And fencing is not one of those things. It's almost like bowling. It's not one of those things that you immediately think of as a sport or something, that Americans would be heavily involved in. But then again, lacrosse and soccer are making big plays now here in the US. So I think that there's probably room for it. But wow, what a lesson learned. So what do you take out of that? What would you tell our listeners as a lesson learned from that experience?
That if you're in an industry or a profession and you yourself go, there must be a better way, the answer is yes, there is. Unfortunately, you may be the person responsible for creating that better way.
Yes.
And you need to assemble a team. I joke around, it's kind of like assembling the Avengers. And then have either the resources, the funding to, manifest that change. Because there are stakeholders that are making money based on the fact that it is currently, messed up and that it is inefficient. And they will fight you tooth and nail to keep it that way because they don't want you to make the bed, so to speak. So,
wow, you just completely described Talent's Ascent. Because we're disrupting the industry in that regard, and it is tough because we're fighting job boards and staffing agencies that have been around for ages and years, and that's what people are accustomed to. But for small businesses, it's not a good model and they can't afford it, and it's just so it's frustrating. But yes, that is our fight and we are here to do it. So I want to get to Tax Titans because I don't want to run out of time, but I want you to talk about your homeless veterans project. So tell us a little bit about that.
So during COVID, I got the opportunity to learn how to make tiny homes out of shipping containers.
Nice.
I had been doing work with a group here in Greenville called Fellow Countrymen. That was all about getting homeless vets off the street, get them off of their method of dealing with their demons, and then getting them to be productive members of society. One of the big challenges was, okay, once they, got off of whatever their drug of choice was, getting them a place where they could live, they could, get a job and then integrate back into society. So from that aspect, that's how the whole shipping container home thing started. There's a great group out of Texas that trained me how to do it. When I told them why, they literally took their crew and came to Greenville and ran a training session and showed about 15 of us veterans how to build it. I had learned, but then they ran through a course like that. And then we were building those types of things and then ran into some hurdles with code enforcement and the city of Greenville to provide that, $10,000 solution to a $100,000 taxpayer problem. And then that's kind of when the intersection and the opportunity came with Tax Titans. Tax Titans, we've created the first marketplace for accounting and financial professionals to find a certified tax individual. And then that segued into me realizing that the tax industry is literally the wild, wild west. And that in order to become a tax professional, you pay the IRS $36, you get an identification number. You don't have to be certified, you don't have to be licensed, and you can set up shop in any strip mall in the US.
Wow.
But in learning the people that provide the software and that provide actual training, I realized that this was an opportunity for transitioning veterans and military spouses to get a side hustle full-time gig to make $50,000 to $80,000 a year, which was, when I was working with homeless vets, what I found was the leading cause of homelessness in veterans. They would leave the military, they wouldn't have a smooth transition into civilian lifestyle and civilian work. They had been great people, taking charge, being their own boss and stuff in the military, following orders, serving, their country, and
all those skills.
Yep. And which is great for entrepreneurs.
Absolutely.
But there wasn't an opportunity, at least in the financial world, for them to have an opportunity outside of like buying a franchise of like an H&R Block or a Jackson Hewitt. So we created a pathway for them to become certified and trained as an enrolled agent, and then get the software from Drake Software to actually set up shop. And I have dealt with a number of military spouses who for the last 5-10 years have become tax professionals, and wherever they move in the United States with their significant others that are serving, they can still service their customers, still make 50 to 80,000, some of them over six figures, in providing accounting resources for their clients. And as long as they have an internet connection, they are good to be able to do the job.
That's amazing. Well, I could attest to the fact that there are people out there who just slap a shingle on their door and say they're an accountant and they can do my taxes, because in the 6.5 years we've been in business, I think I've had 5 different accountants trying to do my taxes. So, and one of them really, really hurt us bad.
And that's one of the things that when we created the platform, we set our own standards for people to be listed on the platform.
Good.
They had to have at least 2 years worth of experience. They had to have references of people that said, yes, they've done a great job. And they had to have what's called an EFIN number. So an EFIN number means that as a tax professional, I have had a background check by the FBI and the IRS. So that is a step higher than just having a PTIN number, because now I'm financially responsible for filing that person's taxes. So I really can't be, quote unquote, fly by night now.
Yeah. Wow. And what a great model for military spouses, because that is definitely one of the, I mean, we talk about it all the time at Talents Ascend. And it's one of the reasons we do what we do as well, is that, you know, military spouses face barriers because gaps in their work history or lack of career progressions, and they can't take their careers with them. They have to start over everywhere they go. And there's so many skills that they bring to the table. But what a great model that you have that they can take with them wherever they go. Just that's a great opportunity. So good for you.
Yeah.
So what's on the horizon for Tax Titans?
So we are building something called a multi-pass system, which we have created an enterprise bridge, which allows one accounting firm to work with another accounting firm. Okay. You'd think that after 121 years of paying taxes, that someone would have invented a way for an accounting firm to retire or get rid of clients and transfer them to another accounting firm. That did not exist.
Wow.
It does now, starting next year.
Yay!
Which allows accounting firms, if they want to retire and sell their book of business to another accounting firm, say in Arizona, they can do that. And because of now Zoom and Google Meets, you don't have to actually sit in front of your accountant. You could be like we are on this podcast.
Exactly.
And from that aspect, that stumbled into an opportunity for us to realize that we could provide, say, a car dealership with the opportunity for a taxpayer to go into a dealership, get their taxes done, get a refund, take that refund, apply it as a down payment for their car, all in the 2 or 3 hours that they would be in the dealership, instead of going to H&R Block and Jackson Hewitt, trying to spend 3 or 4 hours to get their taxes done, or 2 weeks, and then wait 2 or 3 weeks for the Treasury to give them a refund.
Yeah.
It's like, let's just cut out all the middlemen.
All the noise.
And then, get rid of all the friction. And now I, as a taxpayer, get an invite from the auto dealership, the furniture store, the appliance store, all the big ticket items that people are like, hey, I'm going to wait to get my tax refund, and then I'm going to go buy X. So that's the big thing that we hope is going to, drive a lot of consumers to our platform. So
no doubt. I mean, we live in a world of instant gratification, unfortunately, sometimes.
Yep.
But that's a great opportunity for you, because you're going to fill that need. Wonderful. Wow. So, all right. So, ascending beyond barriers and more, you've got some successes. What would you tell our listeners? What has been your biggest challenge in starting any of these ventures that you've been on, and how did you overcome it?
So our biggest issue with Tax Titans in the very beginning is nobody understood the tax or the accounting industry. So us trying to get local leaders in the ecosystem to give us help or provide us funding was the biggest obstacle, which meant that I had to drive to Charlotte once a week and Atlanta once a week to meet with other people in the tech community that kind of got the idea of what we were doing, who could then invest and help us succeed. There's a great organization out of Charlotte called RevTech Labs. One of the managing partners is a Navy nuclear vet.
Yes.
And he was like, well, it's a bunch of veterans putting this together. Nobody's ever done this before, but if somebody is going to overcome these obstacles and not let no bother them, it's probably these guys. So they made an investment in us. They were the first people to believe in us, which allowed us to overcome that initial hurdle. And for every other person out there that's got an idea, you're going to hear no 100 times over. You're going to have to be resilient, but the person that needs to believe in you is you. If you believe in you, you can overcome every other obstacle. And I think anybody who is a military veteran or a former athlete, you're constantly being faced with challenges. You're given the tools to overcome them. You're going to fail. You're going to learn things. And then it's up to you to get back up and try again. I've taught fencing for 30 years. I've never had someone come in, take, 2 months worth of lessons and then win the gold medal. It's like your first competition, you are going to get your ass kicked. And then you figure out why you get your ass kicked. You come back, we work on it. And then you go back out there and you're going to get your ass kicked again, but just not as bad. And you keep going and going and going. You take care of each of those problems along the way. And then eventually, oh, look, I'm the winner. Or you become the best that you can be. And I tell that to a lot of my students. I'm like, you're going to become the best athlete that you can be. You may not be the gold medalist all the time, but you will be the best person that you can be. And for some people, that's third, that's second, that is them becoming better than they were yesterday, but not as good as they're going to be tomorrow. So
yeah, absolutely. And the same thing is in business. I mean, you have to learn from the triumphs. You have to learn from the tribulations. I mean, you have to learn what you're doing. We're going through that now too. I mean, we're almost 7 years old and just really figuring out what have we done right? What's the next 7 years look like? And how can we make it better? We've pivoted to focus on small businesses, which a lot of staffing and those kind of agencies out there aren't focused on. So we're really proud of what we built, but it is hard. And even though you believe in yourself, and I 1,000% believe in myself and what I'm doing, there's still tough days. It's like, there's still days, but you
make mistakes and it costs money. I mean, we made a mistake with a co-founder that cost us $500,000. That's a hard pill to swallow. And you wake up the next day and going, okay, I raised all that money. That money went out the back door. Now I've got to go do it again. And then hopefully I learned enough from the last time that I don't make the mistake again.
Exactly.
One of my co-founders, we joke around with, it's like, if I had it to do all over again, I wouldn't make the same mistakes. I would just make different ones. So from that aspect, it's like, okay, losing is learning. It's one of the, 10 rules that I have up on the fencing school wall. And it's like, if you lose or you make a mistake, as long as you learn something, it's not a wasted day.
Exactly. There's the point. You have to learn something from it, because if you keep making the same mistake over and over again, that gets you nowhere. But it's definitely learning from your mistakes and not doing that again. So tell us about a success. You've had a lot of different ventures. What's been your favorite thing to work on?
It's always going to be fencing.
Nice.
Taking a teenager who hasn't fit into any sport, who doesn't believe in their ability, and watching them go from, now being confident in taking a chance, losing, and then training and becoming better. One of my, greatest accomplishments for a student is I had a kid that started with me in 8th grade. 2 left feet, 2 left hands, never picked for sports, played Pokemon, video games, then became an athlete through fencing, then went and got a presidential appointment to the Air Force Academy. Nice. And about 2 months ago was just promoted to major in the Air Force. And, he has told me multiple times, had he never gotten into the sport, he would have never had the confidence or the, persistence to graduate from the Air Force Academy. And he is now in charge of literally thousands of people's lives and stuff. And it's like, knowing that, me trying to help him along to overcome and build that confidence is, what, I accomplished. That to me is the real benefit, the real, achievements. It's not so much the money in the bank account, because at the end of the day, we all get put into the same 6-foot hole. So
good point. Exactly. Wow. Do you have a studio here in Greenville?
Yes. So we have it off of Rutherford Road. We have about 40 students. Our youngest is 6 and our oldest is 74. So
nice.
Yep. So.
That's awesome. I'm just thinking, because my grandson, who's on the spectrum, but he's a computer whiz, but not physically sports oriented at all. But I can see him doing fencing and loving it. I have get him into that. Yeah.
I have a couple of students who are on the spectrum, and their parents love it because it requires them to focus.
Yes.
They're very, very enthusiastic about it.
Yeah.
And, for one of the parents, it's amazing. They're like, they won't talk to anybody at home or in school, but they come here into the fencing school and they're like a chatterbox with all the other fencing students. They're like, how is this even possible? I'm like, because they're all like enjoying the same thing. It's, like recognizes like, so to speak.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that's awesome. It just reminds me of when I was in the Navy, stationed in Pearl Harbor. I worked for a Red Cross timeout nursery, and people would bring their kids there so they could have a timeout. And just like you said, it was so heartwarming to see how a little kid can go from just being totally inverted to when they walk in that door, they smile, they shine. It's a heartwarming feeling. So
yes.
congratulations, Blake, on all you're doing and all you continue to do. As we close out, leave us with one motivational thought, or just tell the entrepreneurs out there how to keep going.
Don't listen to anybody else. Be your biggest fan. And like I said, my motto is, if you think outside of the box, that's great, because the box is like a coffin. It's where dreams go to die. So if you've got a dream, and dream it, believe in yourself. Don't listen to your critics. And if somebody is giving you a, criticism and they don't believe in you, you need to find new friends. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. Perfect. Well, Blake, thank you so much for being on with us today. Look forward to watching Tax Titans grow.
okay. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.